involves getting into configuration, config mode, conft. Now while we can do the config commands also from command line, we'll get into playbooks so that we will also see how to write the playbooks. Playbooks are nothing but scripts, right? Ansible decided to call them playbooks, but ultimately they are like scripts. When you say scripts, instead of executing commands in an ad hoc manner directly on the command line, we put them in a script, organize them logically to build some logical flow, and then execute them together. The advantage is reusability again. You have written a playbook, saved it, you can share it. You can share it with your team. They can use it. You can use it. You can version control it. And tomorrow something changes, you can appropriately make the changes. So it also acts as a documentation. All these advantages are there if you are using playbooks. Right. Now we'll take one command and see how while we can work with ad hoc commands. Writing scripts will let us reuse the scripts as needed. The reusability is one. They are written in YAML format. You can use the extension .yaml or YML. In fact, this is applicable to any YAML file that you write. Right? You can pick one of these extensions. Generic structure of Ansible Playbook is as follows. So this shows the structure. One here is the name that you give to the play. Playbook is a collection of plays. Right? You can have multiple plays, which is something like saying there are multiple functions that you put in a Python file. Right? It's kind of similar to that. It's like playbook can be thought of as a Python script with multiple functions. So here you can have multiple plays. Second thing we specify is hosts. Right? On command line we were specifying on which hosts those commands should be executed. So that we specify using this host keyword. Then this is optional. If you're not specified in the host file, we can specify it here. Connection as network CLI. This I'll come to that. Gather facts underscore gather facts no. Then your actual tasks start. Right? Again, tasks is a list of tasks. First task, second task, and so on. We can give an option. We can optionally give a name to each task, but it is recommended to be. It's recommended that you give a name to each of your tasks, because when the script is executing, you can identify your task using these names. Then the actual module name, right? On the command line we gave the module names like irs underscore command, CLI underscore command. That module name will come here. Then the arguments which need to be passed to that module name will come here. Right? Like in case of irs command, we pass commands. So here the commands will come. In case of CLI command, we pass command. So that command will come. Then whatever we were saying, whatever we were passing to the as command or commands, the strings, the actual commands will come here. Okay. So that is the structure of this playbook. And you have a name of the play, you have hosts, you have connection mode. Optionally, you can specify either there or here. Then this is a kind of default task. Right? Gathering facts is a default task. So now the tasks that I am specifying here, these are the tasks I want them to be performed. But every playbook, whenever you run, even without any task, it runs one task by default, called as gathering facts. Now, gathering facts is like it collects a lot of data about the host that it is connecting to. Right? It collects close to hundreds of variables for hundreds of different types of data. Right? It may not always be useful, and if you are working with, let's say, one device, it's fine. But let's say you are at a time connecting to all the devices and you have 10 to 15 devices, gather facts can take significant amount of time. Right? So unless you know that you need this data which is being gathered by default by Ansible, we normally set this to set this to no. Right? I'll not set this, and then I'll print this what all data that it gathers and show you, so that you'll get an idea how much of data it collects and in which cases we'll be needing this data, so that we can skip this no part and then let it gather the facts so that we can use them further in our scripts. Sometimes it is useful, right? In some cases, we need the facts which are being gathered. Right? It's like you want to dynamically perform something. You want to get the value from the system that we are connecting to, and then decide how to go about dealing with it. In such cases, you let Ansible gather those data and extract that from the facts which have been gathered by Ansible, and then take a decision how to handle that. In that case, it will be useful. But in general, to make our scripts more performant, we skip it. Then your actual task section. Now we'll take a ad hoc command and then see how we can write a playbook for that. So we'll create a folder called as playbooks so that we can keep all the playbooks together. Inside this, we'll create a playbook called as show command test.y. I'll just put the ad hoc command for reference here. This is my ad hoc command. So as I said, first we'll start with this. This marks the beginning of a YAML document. Then this is like a playbook which can consist of multiple plays. So I can have a list of plays. So whenever there's a list in YAML, we specify it like this with a hyphen. And then we give a name to the first play. Play to commands. Right? Then we need to indent it. We need to specify on which host, right? Like this. This Ansible first says on which host it wants to run. So that we specify here. Hosts. In our case, host is R1. Then we have that default task which runs. So we will set it to no. Then we have the tasks which need to be specified. So we say tasks. Again, task can be So this is one advantage. With Playbook, you can specify multiple tasks together. Then it will go on performing one after the other, one after the other. Whereas with ad hoc command, you can specify only one task using this -m switch. Okay. So in tasks, then I'll give name. So let's say show version. This is not the command, this is just the name. Task to show version. Here I need to give the module name, which needs to be used for performing this. Right? Module name is this. I take this. Yeah. Then this expects commands to be passed. I take this. Here. Then this is like a list. This is my command. So let's comment this line and try to execute it. So this way you can convert ad hoc command into a playbook. And the only things that extra are this. I can take off these. I can even take off this. I can directly start with hosts. I can take off this name as well. Okay. You see, it is like a simplest kind of playbook, which is kind of goes hand in hand with your command. Now this Ansible will not come because we'll be using another executable called as Ansible Playbook when we are invoking this playbook on command line. But other than that, you are getting host here. So you put host keyword and then specify the host. Then you are specifying your task here. So you put task keyword and specify the module here. Then this guy comes here. This guy comes here. But to make it more kind of efficient, effective, we specify some additional things like names and some additional data which will be gathered by default. We are saying I don't need it for now. Okay, we'll go to the command line. We'll say the executable to invoke playbook is Ansible Playbook. Then where is my playbook located? It is located inside playbooks. This one. Again, I can specify -u, -k, -c, all those things here also, but not required because we have already taken care of them, push them to the host file. If no syntax or any other issues are there, you will see this kind of output. So this is the name, this is the play, the name that we gave to our play. The play consists of tasks. This is the name we gave it to our task. So the task was successful. It says okay. For the host R1, task was successful, but we don't see anything. Right? So now this is the play recap. On R1, there was one task which was okay. Changed is false, which means I have not made any changes. Obviously, my show command, so it won't make any changes. Unreachable. Are there any hosts which were unreachable? No. Were there any tasks which have failed? No. Were there any tasks which were skipped? No. Were there hung and rescued? No. Were they ignored? No. Okay. So this also shows what all different kinds of errors you can get into. Like there could be certain tasks which are ignored, certain tasks which get hung, which need to be rescued. There are some tasks which there's a conditional execution because of which they get skipped. There are some tasks which can fail. There are some hosts which could be unreachable, and so on. So it was successful, but we don't see anything. But before that, and there is something called as -- syntax check. Right? We would like to, since YAML is very, very sensitive to indentation, we would like to check if you have written, let's say, a big playbook, we would like to first check whether my syntax is fine. So that you can do it this way, -- syntax check. It won't exactly execute. It will just check the syntax. Right? If there are no errors, you will get an output like this. It is successful. Suppose you make some mistake intentionally. It gets saying looks like this won't exactly pinpoint the error. Ansible plays very safe there. It randomly shoots in there saying, I mean, most of the times it gives very useful inputs, but sometimes it's not that useful. Right? So it is saying we were unable to read either JSON or YAML. There are errors that we got from each. So expecting value line 1, column 1. Basically what it is saying is because of this indentation mistake, it is not treating this guy as a YAML file. And it is saying I haven't found any YAML at all or JSON at all. Then it went ahead and refined itself further and said syntax error while loading YAML file. Mapping values are not allowed in this context. Right? It is treating this as a this inside this. Both should be at the same level. Then rather it is treating gatherfacts as a child of host. So which it says is not allowed in this place. So finally it is pointing to this place with an arrow here. Then we can make out, oh, okay, looks like we made some mistake. So that's how syntax check will be able to help you. Now, there is one more mode called as check mode. This we call it as dry run mode. That's because Terraform, Ansible, these, as I said, they are like infrastructure. They are going to play around with your infra. They are going to make some changes to your infrastructure. So if you unintentionally do something, let's say, I don't know, networking guys, let's say you accidentally deleted a VLAN, right, by writing a playbook without actually checking what you are doing, right? It can wreak havoc in your network. So we would like to be doubly sure before you actually go and make changes to your infrastructure using these tools. So they have given this kind of utilities. So check mode is like a dry run mode. What it does is it shows what it is going to do without actually doing it. Of course, this makes more sense when we are actually giving config commands. So it has, though it is showing okay, it has not actually done it. Okay. Now we'll know that when we actually print output. Okay. For once, let us execute. So once again, let us execute without the check mode. So it is actually executed the task, but output is not coming. So that's another difference between ad hoc command and playbook mode. In ad hoc command, the output is shown then and there. In playbook, that is not the case because we could have multiple tasks, tens of tasks or hundreds of tasks together. So whose output will it show? The output can easily run into thousands and thousands of lines, which may not be very useful, right? So for that reason, by default, they suppress the output. They do not show the output. If you want to check the output, right? Normally, when we want to check the output for debugging purposes, to ensure that yes, Ansible Playbook is actually doing what we intend to do, right? In such cases, we want to print the output. So we'll have to explicitly tell Ansible to store the output of this task in a variable using a keyword called as register. Right? This register says that store the output of this, whatever the task is executed, in a variable called as output. Right? Now there's a variable that I am defining, so its name can be anything. But there's a keyword register, so it has to be register only. And where should this register be placed? This register should be placed at the same level as the task. This is the task, right? So at the same level of the task, you need to place this register and put some variable here. So the output of this task gets stored in this variable. Now, what's the point of storing this variable? Until we have a way to tell Ansible to display what is there in this variable, which is what we have another module called as debug. Right? As the name suggests, debug, it's used for debugging. In programming, when we say debugging, it is nothing but checking the status of different variables during the process of execution. Right? Whenever we are writing code, what are we doing? We are accepting some data, storing them input variables, processing them, converting them into some output. So it's the variables which are actually the crux, how the data changes in these variables. So if I'm not getting the expected result, what is the best way to find out what is going on inside? Being able to see how the value in my variables is changing during the program execution. The best way to do it is by debugging and the process of debugging. So in programming also, most of these editors have this mode. For example, I click on this run. There's an option like start debugging. Right? It will give me an option to save it and run it. This is the first task, successful. This is the second task, print output. Now it is showing the output. Okay. Output is in the form of a JSON format, which is nothing but your Python dictionary. So how you deal with your Python dictionary, the same way you can extract values from this. For example, let's say you want to extract what is the IP address. Okay, it's actually executing. How is it happening? Probably it's because um, of show command. We'll see with the config command. So that's how you write a playbook. We have written a playbook to show the run commands. Now we'll use a config command. Right now, config command, we have another module called as iOS_config. Rest of the structure remains exactly the same. Name, post, gather facts, yes or no. Okay, I wanted to show you gather facts, right? We'll write one more playbook. So facts on. We'll just take the same. We don't need this task. We just have. I will say facts here. So yes. What this does is it gathers the data and stores in a variable called as Ansible_facts. So we'll just ask it to print Ansible_facts. First, I'll show you no. Let's see that yes, it should not work, and then we say yes, it should work. Ansible facts is blank. Now let's say change this to yes. True false also work here. True false, yes, no. Just gathered all this data. IPv4 addresses about the host, right? It collected information about the host. So this is the IPv4 address, all IPv6 address, net API, net config, file systems, host name, net host name, what is the image which is being used. So you see all this useful, in fact, interfaces, what all interfaces are there, IPv4 address, and all the information has been gathered. Since this is a network device, which is still less, if it's a Linux device, it will be like kind of much more. Yeah. Okay, so that's what gathering facts would do. Now we'll see the config. So here instead of iOS command, we'll say iOS config. So that's the module. Right? Now, config normally we send them as not as commands but as lines. Right? We say config lines. Then what are the config lines which need to be sent? For instance, let's say here we are adding a description to the interface and setting the IP address. Now we can also specify parents, which means under which config section this line should be added. That also can be specified using this parents section. This is optional. If you don't specify this, this will be added directly to the main config. If you set parents, it will go to this section and add the config under that section. So it will go and first I'm connecting to this one. Let me connect to R1. I'll say show run root section. Okay, there's no IP address, there's no description, and it is down. So this is the current section. After we configure it, we will see the same output again by connecting to the device. So we are setting some description, we are setting the IP address and this thing to registering the output and printing the output so that we'll know whether it is successful or not. It has changed the configuration, so it shows in yellow, and here it shows changed to true. What were the commands that got executed, and what is the updates that were done? Whether these commands have failed or not. Also in the recap, it shows yes, it has changed. So the IP address got added and the description is down. Let's see. If I did it before, let's see for 2. It's not there. Okay, for 2 description and IP address is not been set. So let's test the check mode here. We'll change this playbook to change 2. Change is supposed to come as check mode is not working. Oh, okay. Doesn't change actually. So it goes to the device, it connects to the device, it shows what is it going to do, what is the impact it's going to have, but it won't actually do the change. Right? So the change has not happened. That's it. Or this type. This change has not actually happened. So how many ever times you run this, it says that it has changed because we are running in a check mode. It only shows what it is going to do. You run it again. Again it says changed. Again it says changed to, but to come to the device, nothing happened. Now let's run without the check mode. Same output. But here the change has happened. Okay, so that's check mode. And another thing is you run the same command. Already the change has been done, right? Config change has been. You run it again. It says OK, which means it has nothing. It did not have anything to do. The change was already there. So it says changed is false. It went to the device, tried making the change. The change was already done by the previous run, and so it just came back. So that way Ansible is safe. How many ever times you can apply the configuration? It will apply the configuration only if it requires, only if it is needed to be applied. Right? That's why we call this as these tools and configuration management tools put your system into the desired configuration. Right? By specifying this playbook, we are saying you desire your interface gigabit Ethernet 2 to have this description with the IP address this, telnet mask this, subnet mask this. And when you run this, your network device was put into this state where this interface has been configured with these details. Next time when you run this playbook again, your network device is already in that state, in the desired state. So it will not make any changes, and hence it comes back as this, saying I've not changed anything. Okay, we still have some time. Vault secret we'll see later, but we will see some things related to Ansible. Now, here I've hard-coded a lot of things, right? Which interface, which IP address, which is not a very good thing, right? Because if I have to configure another interface with a different IP address, again, I'll have to add this entire section or do some other jugglery, right? Rather, we would like to have parameterize these things. We can do that using pairs. We'll put that as a variable, and here I'll use variable placeholder. Same way. So it starts executing, it comes to this task, it tries to execute this command, shows this and understand that, oh, okay, there's a placeholder. It tries to look for a variable with the name IP, and it finds this under the where section, takes this value, substitutes here, comes here, searches for this variable, takes this value, substitutes here and goes ahead and executes. How will we know? We'll change the value. Okay, it has made the change 200 from. So this way you can parameterize your things. So I'll put 201. Again, I made some change. So your desired state and actual state are different. So Ansible puts your router into the desired state. Okay, now this variables could be pushed into a variables file and refer that file. Right here, I'll have under my project one, I'll have file like, or I'll have the same section itself, same vars dot YAML. I'll take these variables. In YAML spec. Just like that. Then take this name and put them there under vars underscore files. That's because vars underscore files, because I can specify multiple files. So here I just need to specify the path. Right? It is there in vars dot YAML. I'll go here and give a different value to 10. Right? Goes to the vars file, takes the value, puts them there, and then changes it. So that's how you can parameterize things. You can play around a lot. So basically, this gives you the power to do multiple things here. So that was variables. Now this leads us to something called as, let's say, now you have your sensitive data, right? Like you want to put your Ansible user and password here, or for instance, this itself, the data that you put itself is sensitive, right? You want to protect this. You have a concept called as Ansible Vault. Ansible itself provides a secure mechanism called as Vault, where you can maintain secret things like your API keys, usernames, passwords, anything for that matter. You can just put it into Vault. Now, this is like typically your bank vault. Like you take your valuables and go and store them in the vault. Now, the vault itself is like secured again using a key. Right, banker gives you a key. So you same way, unless you have the key, you'll not be able to open the vault. So Ansible also has this concept called as vault, which ideally you are supposed to store all the confidential data into the vault. So how you can use vault is using the executable called as Ansible Vault. First, you want to create a secrets file. So say Ansible create secrets dot YAML. It is asking you to enter a password because you need a password to open that. Let's say vault. Just confirm. So it has opened your vault secrets file. So here I'll put the data, whatever I had there. Ansible -vault create. Now uh, my secrets file has been created. Let's try to view this secrets file. All you see is encrypted data. Right? Open it using any of the editors, you'll see the same thing. Okay. So this vault can be opened only using Ansible vault. Normally, you don't want to, let's say you just want to see, you can use U. When it asks you for password, enter password, only then it shows you the contents. Let's say you want to edit, you have to say edit. Again, ask for password, so you can change it. Okay. What else? Creating, viewing, editing. Let's say you want to change the password for some reason. Right? The password as in vault's password. You say rekey. Ask you for vault old password and then prompt for new password. Rekey successful. So let's say you don't want it to be, the secrets file to be guarded by Ansible anymore. Right? You say decrypt. Right? Make this as normal file. Transfer your password. The decryption successful. Now you can use using your usual tools. Again, you want to encrypt. You say encrypt. It asks you for new password, test, encryption successful. Right, so that's Ansible for you. Now, how you can use Ansible Vault, right? That's Ansible Vault for you. How you can use Ansible Vault with your playbooks is same way, right? You are referring to your this is your playbook. You are referring to your files instead of your regular VARs file. You refer to secrets. They're the same variables defined there. Now let's try to run it as it is. Simple playbook, playbooks. Okay, I'm already inside config test. Now, that's it. So it says it could not. I need to be outside. Because inside the playbooks file, it won't find the host file, right? So it is outside, so I need to be here. So it says inside this, I'm trying to read some variables from secrets, which is protected by a vault, but no vault secrets found. So the way to use is, let's say at the rate prompt. Yeah. You say minus ask vault pass. Ask for your password, decrypts it, decrypts the file, takes the values, goes ahead and configures it. Right? We put 220. Right? So this does the trick. Now, in automation, obviously, you cannot have this kind of prompting thing, right? Let's say you are trying to automate this process as well. So in such case, what you can do is you need to create a file, void nano vault underscore pass. Password is this. Very safe and secure password. Now, since I have it in file, I'll say minus vault password file. So I'll point it to the password file. The same command, instead of asking it to telling it to ask for password, I'll say I have put my password in this file. Go ahead and take it. So this will help us to during automation without the manual intervention. So where's your password file? Vault underscore pass. Okay, this time it won't prompt you. It will directly open the it will directly go to the file, take the key, open the vault, take the password, substitute in the playbook, run it, and there's no change, so it hasn't done anything. Now, how do we change? We have to go through vault again. I cannot simply do this. So I have to go to my command line, use Ansible vault, edit secrets is not here, it is inside playbook. Playbooks, secrets. I change address. Okay. Those and changes. So what happened is Ansible Playbook goes to playbooks file, takes this playbook, opens it, sees what needs to be done. Okay, these are the actions, but they're using some variables. Where are those variables? Where's file is defined inside this. It tries to open it. Is an encrypted file. So it goes to the secret. It's an encrypted file. What does it do? It again comes here, sees that, oh, okay, you are referring to a vault pass file using this, goes to vault pass file. Vault pass file is here. Yeah. Takes this value, goes to vault, opens it, opens the secrets. Inside this here are the secrets. There are those two variables, IP and interface. Takes those details, replaces them in the with the placeholders, executes this task. Okay, that's what happens in this. Now, so that's how most of the vaults would work. Ansible Vault is like completely non-GUI based. It's a CLI based. There are other vaults like you have your HashiCorp Vault, which is a kind of web application. It provides you a different way of storing your passwords, but ultimately the concept is same. Right? So you have a secure mechanism where you have your password stored. So using some way, you open the vault, extract the password or whatever that sensitive data, use it in your code or scripts. So we'll stop here, and in the next class we'll see how to set up vault and then how to store secrets and how to extract secrets and use them in let's say playbook.
Recording stopped.